the Last Minute Blues podcast with Alex Ferrario, Donny Fandango, and Jeremy Rutherford on your home of the St. Louis Blues, 101 ESPN.
It is the Last Minute Blues podcast. Donny Fandango joined in studio currently by Alex Ferrario from 101 ESPN.
Currently.
Handling your Blues pre- and post-game. The reason that I say currently is because we hope that before the end of the podcast, we're going to get Jeremy Rutherford breezing through here.
A live entrance, like WWF style. Like, I wonder if his music will go off when he walks through, like Stone Cold.
That would be so fantastic. And the reason that that would be so fantastic is it is so unlike JR's personality. Like, dude, if we fired up entrance music, he would
just cower down, just kicks the door down and be like, whoa, what's going on here?
He would. I do not think that he would handle that particularly well, but we're hoping that we do get JR in because he was just in Buffalo.
Yeah.
As they were doing all of the combine. Coming up for the NHL Draft. So he also had the opportunity to talk to Doug Armstrong, and he did put a lot of that stuff out in the article yesterday in The Athletic, but I definitely am looking forward to talking to him about that. I also think, and we'll talk about it more when JR gets here, Blues fans are wanting a lot of things to happen this offseason.
Yeah.
And I think that Blues fans should prepare themselves genuinely for there not to be a lot that happens in this. It very well might not be. Now, just as soon as I say that,
three moves are going to happen.
But I really, and again, we'll talk about it when JR gets here a bit more. But tonight in Raleigh-Durham, you've got game number 2 of the NHL Stanley Cup Finals. I watched game number 1. And in watching game number 1, I had this sinking feeling in my stomach.
Uh-oh.
Everybody predicted this series to be 6-7 games, to be a dogfight, to go right down to the end. Alex, I don't think it's going to be that.
Really?
I think this series is over in max 5.
Really? You think Vegas is winning?
Dude, I think Vegas is on a friggin' roll. I think they're on a roll. I think that they know at this stage in their team how to handle diversity, how to handle when they go down by a couple of goals. And if you're Carolina, you're going to start pressing. If it's not tonight, it's going to be real soon. If you get behind in this game tonight, dude, then all of those voices of, we finally got here. We got, this is the year Florida wasn't in. We were able to make it. We got to do this. I just think that this is Vegas on a roll at the exact right time. And I think they're going to mow through Carolina.
See, I don't. I look at this.
I hope you're right.
I look at this the other way. And I think a lot of people are on the side of we're at, Donny, to where they saw that outcome and they're like, oh, Vegas is unstoppable. Man, I saw that game differently. Vegas was awesome in terms of how they pushed themselves back in. Carolina made too many mistakes. Mm-hmm. And if you look at how Carolina has played throughout this postseason, they don't make mistakes. Mm-hmm. Now, that first game against Montreal, let's remember, they got blown out of the water in that game. What was it, 6-1 the final score?
Right.
They made a ton of mistakes because they hadn't seen a team that played that style. They're fast. Montreal's able to kind of beat you off the rush, and they made mistakes. Their goalies didn't make the big save, and they got beat up in the first game. And I think everybody was like, oh, Montreal is untouchable. Carolina's done for. They sat around for too long. And then what did Carolina do the next 4? They won them all.
Yeah.
And they didn't win them all.
They absolutely locked Montreal down.
Yes.
I mean, it looked like Big Brother, Little Brother, with Big Brother holding the little brother by the forehead sort of thing.
Montreal couldn't get shots on goal.
Yeah.
So Carolina is the ultimate adjuster. Like Carolina, and this is why I love Rod Brind'Amour. It reminds me a lot of what Berube was in 2019. When one team would do something that they hadn't seen yet, give them a game and they'll adjust to it. And that's what Rod Brind'Amour does best. So I don't think you're going to see as many turnovers by Carolina tonight. I think you're going to see them play a stingier brand of hockey. And when that happens, what's Vegas going to do? Because think of Vegas's path to the Stanley Cup. I'm not taking anything away from them, but who's the toughest defensive team that they played against?
Well, I get very much what you're saying, because I would say probably Colorado, but even in Colorado, you had an incredibly banged up Makar.
And like, they're not that tough of a defensive team if you think about it. Like, the reason I'm asking that is Carolina's entire team, their identity is Brendamore's system.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, and I could be wrong, if they get beat up tonight, then you're going to have your answer and you might be correct. But to me, this Carolina Hurricanes team has lost once in the playoffs, and they have found a way to adjust in that game, and then they beat the hell out of Montreal. And the other thing that I think people are thinking of is, oh man, they lost at home. Like, you may go down 1-1 and go to Vegas. They're undefeated on the road this season in the playoffs. So to me, this series is nowhere near over. I think Carolina did the equivalent of, all right, we saw your first move. And now we're going to give you our best. And tonight is going to be the really telling factor of, is Vegas on a heater like you're talking about? Or has Carolina once again figured out how to adjust to their opponent? And I think they will.
I want you to talk about the goaltending in game one from Carter Hart and from Frederik Andersen. Andersen has been fantastic throughout the course of the playoffs. Carter Hart has completely solidified that goaltending position for Vegas, which was real spotty throughout the course of the year. I mean, so much so that there were rumors about Benner potentially maybe going there. But I want to know what you kind of thought about the goaltending, because to me, it feels as though that they both played fine. It seemed like Andersen kind of got left out to dry a couple more times than Hart did. Yeah,
well, because you had, what was it? Two 2-on-1s, I think, and one breakaway in that one. Like, there were a lot. Even Brendamore said afterwards, like, we made way too many mistakes that cost us the game. And that was my view of it. But on the Andersen side, you cannot look away from the fact that he's got a career 885 save percentage in the Eastern Conference Final, and this is his first taste of the Stanley Cup Final.
Yeah.
He's amazing in the first two rounds, and he starts to struggle the later you go. So that is a concern. Carter Hart was the one for me that it's like, man, he's got this. I'm trying to think of the goalie comparison. He's the guy that will give up a goal that it's like, ooh, you can't give that one up. Like, he got beat on his blocker side 2 times, I think, in that game. So you could see they were targeting it. But then he'd make a glove save, and I think it was on Seth Jarvis late in the third period, to where it was like a one-timer, and he just flashed the leather, and it was whoa. Yeah. So Carter Hart's got that ability, to where I don't know if Frederik Andersen does. The part for me, though, is your goalie is as great as your defensive plays in front of him. Like, you need him to make some big saves, and both have the ability, but your goalie is as good as how the team plays in front of you, and that's where I give the edge to Carolina. But the wild part about this series is I don't think this is going to be a goaltending series. I think these two teams are built to basically see their goalie give up a goal and say, we could fix that.
Right, we'll get it back.
We'll get it. Like, look at how Vegas did.
Yep.
You give up 2 goals, 1 in 30 seconds, and they're like, we'll get it back.
Yeah.
And then when they did, Carter Hart locked in. Honestly, it's a lot of what Binnington's been over the last couple of years, to where it's like, you might give up a couple of goals and it's like, oh, you can't give that one up. But if the team's good, they'll be like, we'll get it back. And then if you get it back, they're like, we're in good shape.
Yeah, this is not going to be a finals where you see 2-1 games, 1-0 games.
Unless Carolina just completely locks down Vegas, I don't think so.
All right, so I want to kind of expand this a little bit more, and I want to kind of go back to the Final Four, to the Montreal, Carolina, Colorado, Vegas series. First and foremost, I want to know your thoughts on the Montreal Canadiens, because from what I have heard, from what I have read, this arrival for them to the Eastern Conference Finals maybe came a little bit earlier than folks sort of thought. How do you view this Montreal team going into next season? Because again, from what I understand, they've got draft capital, they have got some highly regarded prospects in which that they can trade, and I believe that they might even have a little bit of cap space, which is incredibly dangerous to me. What do you think about these Canadians moving forward?
I think you're seeing the shift in the Eastern Conference to where it's always been Pittsburgh, Washington, the Rangers, Carolina, the Panthers. I think you're seeing a shift now to where it's going to be the Panthers, Carolina, and then Montreal and Buffalo. Now, I'm a little skeptical on Buffalo.
I kind of am too for some reason.
I want to see what happens if they don't bring back Tuck. Because I think Tuck is one of those heart and soul guys that if you lose, what's your team look like? Like, they're not the same player, but I look at Tuck kind of like I look at what David Perron was for the Blues, to where when he was gone, it was like, what's this going to look like? Or even an O'Reilly, if you want to use it that way.
Because they do so many things all over the ice that when they're gone, it's like this gaping hole in multiple parts of your game, right?
You don't have a guy that can play Tuck style. Now, do they replace that? Maybe. But like, there's rumors that Buffalo was going to try to acquire Kyrou. That's not the same player.
No.
So like their one I'm 50-50 on. But to answer your question, like I think Montreal is supplanting themselves as one of those top teams in the East and is going to be for a long time. I mean, their young players underperformed in the conference final. Like Suzuki wasn't very good. Caulfield wasn't very good. But that's tough when you get a first taste of what an elite team looks like in Carolina. But all those guys are under the age of 26. All of those guys are locked up long term. All of those guys are going to be playing together for the next 3 to 4 years. They've got their goaltender in Dobish. I mean, that guy gave me Binnington vibes in that Montreal run. And then they're going to use all those assets that they have to go get a number 1 or a number 2 center. Like, their biggest hole was the depth at the center position and a little defense. So maybe they need to upgrade that, but like they're going to go acquire a Vincent Trocheck. Like, I wonder if they revisit the Robert Thomas conversation. I don't think St. Louis does it, but they're going to upgrade that position. And when they do, they've got the depth on wing, they've got the depth on center, they've got the depth on D, and you've got your goaltender.
What happens if Montreal comes to St. Louis with some form of package that has that Michael Hague, and they want Robert Thomas, obviously?
It's got to be more. Like,
well, absolutely. I didn't mean just that one for one, but I would assume the center of the package is going to have to be somebody along those sorts of lines.
It's got to be a number 1 center potential, and that's where, if it comes to the Blues. Right now, I would say no, don't do it.
No.
I don't think you should.
I more than anything else, don't think that we should unless an almost Jesus-like offer came down from heaven.
I think the only team that would have that package is Utah. And I've stuck to this since the trade deadline. Yeah. If they're offering a Ginla and Denoye and that Simashev, a defenseman, like that's 3 guys that are all potential top-line players that are all 23 or younger. Like that's going a different direction. And that goes back to when Doug was with us on the podcast where they were talking about like, we've got to decide what direction we're going in. So I don't think it's something that you can just immediately write off. But like, I don't think Montreal and like Hague plus, I don't know if that matches what the Blues. I think the Blues need to have 3 dynamic players back in return for Robert Thomas. That's what I would, if I'm moving him, I need the potential of 3 dynamic players back if I'm trading this guy.
Now, are those 3 dynamic players that are ready to play in the NHL 26, 27?
No, I don't think so. Maybe, but I don't think they're like ready to go.
Okay.
I think if you're doing it, you're looking at it as, hey, look, we're making this move to set the timeline couple of years from now, right? Like we've got Holloway locked up. We've got Snuggerud. You've got Carbonneau. You've got Neighbors. You've got Stenberg. We're making this move so that these guys are in that same window as those guys so that in 3 years, everybody's under the age of 26 and everybody's ready to go. But it does stunt the development for guys like Holloway and Snuggerud. So this is why like this conversation shouldn't go anywhere because I guess there's always a possibility it could happen.
Yeah.
I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it.
Well, and I think like in most places, it seems like that would need the Robert Thomas type center. They don't sort of have the depth to trade back to us. You know, like somebody had mentioned Los Angeles as a potential destination for Thomas. And then I'm thinking to myself, okay, well then if that's going to be the trade, then we're going to get Byfield in return, or he's going to be one of the players we're going to ask for. And why the hell would Los Angeles do that? Because then they just cut their center depth right back in half again.
Yeah, if you're LA, the Blues are asking for Byfield and Brant Clark. Like you're asking for your young defenseman and young Byfield. That's a dumb move for LA. That doesn't make you better.
Right.
The teams that I think realistically will be revisiting the conversation are the teams that looked into it at the deadline. It's Utah, Buffalo, Montreal, and probably Minnesota. And I don't think Minnesota's happening because, we all saw the speculation of the rumor from Michael Russo, what they could offer the goaltender. The team doesn't need goaltending. So I think it's those three teams. And frankly, if it's me, Utah's the only one that I would say has the pieces of the puzzle. But then you got to decide, do you want to kick the ball down the road 2 years from now? Do you want to send him to a division rival? And does he even want to go there?
To Utah.
So this is why, I came to this last week when we were talking on the show. I don't think a team will pay what the Blues should want for Thomas, which is why I'm just not moving Robert Thomas.
Right.
It makes the most sense to just keep him there.
The one thing, too, about Utah, and whether it be Robert Thomas or whomever, I would just think that the way that owner seems to operate, Ryan Smith, that they are going to go big fish hunting big time this offseason. However, and I don't think that it'll be a free agent either. No. I feel like this is going to be a trade because that free agent market is pretty weak, isn't it?
Terrible. Yeah, and that's why I think that it puts the Blues in a really good spot because they have the pieces, and JR can talk to this when he spoke to Army, but they're the one-stop shop for everybody with wingers and defensemen and centers and prospects and picks, but it's just a matter of does somebody want to make it. But yeah, this free agent class is not good. But yeah, Utah has it. The question will be, will the general manager want to make that move?
Right.
But also, and I think this is the other thing people should talk about with this Robert Thomas thing. I wonder if teams missed the boat to get him. Because I think Army was a lot more willing to hear it at the deadline. And now I think there's a lot more cooler heads prevailing where it's I don't think this is going to be a conversation we're going to take.
What do you think Alex Tuch's deal is going to look like?
Oh, so
he's 30.
He's 29.
29, okay.
Yeah, so he'll be 30
for the next season.
Correct.
What does he even get?
I think I saw Friedman or Saravalli say that he wants the deal that who was it that signed it? It was a 6 by $10.4 million. Oh, Kempe's deal from the LA Kings. He wants a Kempe deal, and I think from what the report was, Buffalo wasn't there to where they were ready to go there. I think Buffalo wanted to do $8 million, and I think he wants 10. I really think, and this is the part that I'm interested in, because I think Buffalo will be tied to St. Louis if they don't bring back Tuch. And that's where it's man, if you want fireworks this offseason, maybe hope that Tuch goes to free agency, because that might make a little bit more of an opening. But yeah, I don't think Tuch resigns.
Because I believe, and I cannot remember all of the players involved, but I know Zach Benson is looking for a deal.
Yeah.
There's a defenseman.
Byram.
Byram. And then I thought that there was another defenseman. Kesselring. Yeah. So pardon me, the speculation is they have room for 3 of the 4. Mm-hmm. But then I had heard even with Tuch potentially that he might be looking for 8 years and $11 million.
And he's got to sign that before July 1st, I believe, because
of the new CBA.
Because the new CBA.
And they put the 7-year max on that.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, Buffalo can only sign him to 8, and they have to do it before July 1st.
I really hate to say this to my fellow Buffalonians, even though I'm not one, so I shouldn't say myself
you're an honorary one.
But I could see that team taking a step back next year, dude.
It's why I'm not ready to sit here and act because I think everybody saw it and was oh man, this team's going to be good for a long time. And rightfully so, when you've got Tage Thompson and Zach Benson, and you've got a couple of other prospects that are coming up through the system. They've got good pieces. What's the DNA of the team look like? Because, man, if you don't have that guy that might make the engine go, Alex Tuch, who's so good in every area, top-line player, he is a 1-2 punch with Tage Thompson. What's that look like when you take Tage Thompson's toy away? Because I don't know if you're upgrading over Alex Tuch.
Especially if you're trying to do it through the free agent class or what have you. But then also, too, who is the goaltender on that team, too?
Well, they got 5 options. You just decide who you
I'm
want.
not sure who. I don't know who's better than the other in that particular regard.
That's my thing too. I think they're going to have goaltending problems. It's the same with Utah. Utah is really good, but they don't got a goaltender.
Is Connor Ingram their guy?
No, Ingram's not even with it.
That's right. He's in Edmonton.
Yeah,
I'm sorry about that.
It's Vejmelka, and that Vejmelka was fine in the regular season, but struggled in the postseason. So there's teams that I think people are excited about, which rightfully so for how many great players they have. Always comes back to goaltending though. And if you don't have the right goalie, you don't have the recipe to win it all.
Colorado, did they get swept because of Makar and McKinnon's injuries? Was there more there? It feels like they got good goaltending when they needed to. What do you think about them going into the offseason, coming off a season where they had 121 or 122 points, like an insane regular season?
Yeah, I mean, they should have been better than what they were. So, yeah, to answer your question, I think it was Makar. Like, people look at McKinnon as the MVP of that team. And I credit Mike McKenna for saying this because he's told me this for a long time. Man, Makar's the MVP of that team. Makar is what makes that team go. And I mean, look at what they did in the playoffs. Now, I know McKinnon was hurt too, but
he didn't get hurt until a little bit later on in the series, right?
Yeah, it was like the second game, I think is what it was. But again, like, man, the center isn't the guy that can always make things go. Sometimes it's the versatile defenseman that plays everywhere. So I love their center depth. I think they're still a dangerous team. But yeah, when you lose Cale Makar, that really screws things up. And then I wasn't always sold on their goaltending. I think their goaltending was fine, right? But I just don't know if it was what they needed. Like, he just didn't make the timely saves when they needed them to. Yeah. So, but yeah, I think Colorado's team and success runs through Cale Makar.
And they just lost Colorado, I speak of. Their general manager just left to take a 6-year deal with the Predators.
For $4 million.
Which...
That's a lot.
A lot for an exec.
$4 million for a president of hockey operations.
Yeah. So what do you think about that sort of dynamic? Because from what I understand, McFarland got promoted a couple of times with Colorado because they didn't want him to leave. Yeah. But they did eventually, give him the chance to talk to Nashville and things like that.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't think that's a distraction in the playoffs. Like, I don't think the players are worried about Chris McFarland.
Yeah.
And I'm also not worried, like, the team's direction without McFarland, if that makes sense. Yep. Like, Joe Sakic.
You still got Joe Sakic.
Joe Sakic is a big reason why that direction has been good. McFarland's awesome. I was just surprised it was the division team that they went to, like, especially where the playoffs are happening and like you're letting them converse with the Nashville Predators. But hey, good for the Colorado team to give the opportunity to McFarland to take a job, because we're seeing a lot of other NHL teams that are like, no, sorry, you can't go do job interviews. Vegas,
come on, man,
that's just absurd.
Give the guy the opportunity to work.
I hate that.
You know what I mean? Like, if Cassidy had done something nefarious, something that got him bounced, that made Vegas look bad or something along those lines. Okay. But like,
if he did what Pete DeBoer did in Dallas last year, to where, you take shots at Jake Ottinger, and it's like, then, okay, I get it. Like, no, like, we didn't want you, but no, you're not going to go get another job. But like, this was, you fired him so that you could go get a better coach.
It's just, it's bizarre to me. And it just, again, makes me hate them that much more.
Oh, yeah.
So me telling you that I think they're going to roll Carolina, it's not a good feeling. I don't want to think this. I will say this though, real quick, before we take a break. And even when he was here, I was a huge Ivan Barbashev fan. Yeah. I mean, that guy literally on your hockey team, seemingly, Alex, does anything and everything in which that you can need him to do. You can put him you could put him on any one of those top 3 lines and he's going to be fantastic. Barbie is one friggin' hell of a hockey player, man.
Yeah, Barbie is one of those guys that to this day I'll look at, and I love to have the conversation with Doug when he retires and is out of hockey altogether, because I'd love to know what happened in that conversation of, like, did they think they could bring him back and that's why they traded him, or did they know that they weren't going to be able to bring him back and they said, look, we just got to move on from you because you're not going to be able to be in our price range. I still think that's the one you screwed up on. Like, I would have kept that guy. He's 27 years old. He played the style you want to play. Sure, he was pigeonholed as a third line player. You could put that guy to where a Pavel Buchnevich is right now, or a Pius Suter is right now, and feel really good about your team.
Absolutely.
$5 million. You paid Kevin Hayes $3.7 million and Kasperi Kapanen $3.2 million the next season. You could have paid Ivan Barbashev. So that's the one that there's dynamics that I'm sure I don't know what went into it of, look, maybe he just wasn't willing to re-sign here, or maybe the price was higher because he saw where the team was headed. But that's one of those guys that when you get a guy who's physical, you know what he brings every single night and has offense to show it, those are guys you just can't move away from.
Just one of the most remarkably consistent players that I've seen. You see him out there every night. And I want to say, too, and I could completely be making this up in my mind, but didn't Barbashev have like a situation with Berube where Berube kind of maybe sat him down to be like, hey, man, this is how you're going to have to play if you want to stick here?
I don't remember, but maybe.
I could very well be making that up in my head.
I mean, it's possible. I just think with Barbie, like, one of the problems that the Blues had was they had a lot of guys that they viewed as higher up than Barbashev. So at the time, like if you look back on what that roster was prior to them trading all those pieces away, where was Barbashev playing? He was a third line player for you, to where in Vegas, dude, you're a top line player for us. And so it made a lot of sense that the Blues were just like, do we want to pay a third line player $5 million?
Right.
That's the part, though, that I think you messed up on, because it's like, he's not a third line player. He had 25 goal potential. It's just give him the opportunities. But at the time, you had Thomas and Buchnevich and Kyrou, and you had Jake Neighbors that you just drafted. Zach Bolduc was in your organization. So like you had 3 first-round picks in that year's draft, and you assumed you were taking somebody 10th overall, maybe higher because you didn't know where you were. So like they made the move we all thought they should make. It's just you look back on it and it's like, yeah, that's the guy I would have kept.
All right, well, let's do this. Let's take a break. We'll come back. Maybe we'll have JR with us.
We'll find out.
Well, maybe we won't, but we'll find out next segment coming on the Last Minute Blues podcast. We are back for the second segment of the Last Minute Blues podcast. Now, we're playing like a weird version of like musical chairs or something along those lines. So we got Jeremy Rutherford joining us for the second segment here. To my left, he's normally catty corner. This whole thing is screwing me up, man. It's screwing me up. But JR, you just got back from the metropolis, one of the great American cities of Buffalo, New York, and the Combine was going on there for the NHL Draft, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. You had the opportunity to talk to Doug Armstrong as well. So I guess first and foremost, what was it like in the magical city of Buffalo for a couple of days, man?
Is it weird, guys, that when I see Buffalo, I think of Donny right away?
I think of Donny and then snow.
Yeah.
I want to walk around that city with my shirt off and a number 17 painted on my back. like that.
And a
that
foldable table that you could just carry around wherever.
Whenever I need to jump through it, boom, I've got one there for me.
Let me tell you, there were a lot of 17s.
I can imagine.
Everywhere you went. No, it was great. It was a good couple days, and now you get to see my good side over here. So, I went up there just for a couple days to go to the Combine and interview some people, and I was going to chat with Doug Armstrong up there, but he hadn't made it up there yet. He was coming later in the week, so we did a phone interview. But guys, I got to tell you, again, covering the league for 20 plus years, never been to the Combine. It was pretty eye-opening to be there, and I'll give you a couple of things here. First of all, when you're in that hotel lobby and there's just dozens and dozens, probably hundreds of prospects walking through because they're getting ready for the testing later in the week. Mm-hmm. These guys are 6'3", 6'4", just cut up. Their arms are long. They walk like hockey players. Like, this is
Jared's walking around the hotel lobby like,
just trying to buff it out. Yeah.
Like, I'm used to being around hockey players, but I'm not used to being around 100 18-year-olds that are just ready for the NHL. Yeah. And so you walk around like, wow, this is pretty impressive. And then the other thing is, a lot of the stuff happens at the Harbor Center Hotel. That's where all the testing and everything, the interviews happen. So across the street is a Courtyard Marriott. And I just went over there to kind of get some peace and quiet and work and not be caught up in the hustle and bustle. Well, evidently, that's where agents and GMs also go to have their kind of conversations.
Well,
JR found the hot spot.
Well.
So just a quick, colorful story is I'm sitting at this, lobby of the Marriott Hotel, working on the story after I talked to Doug Armstrong. And all of a sudden, here comes this GM, and he sits down with an agent, and he goes, so what are you looking for? I don't know. I think we're looking for this. What kind of player you think he is? Well, I think he's this kind of player. Really? And each of these conversations, which you have come to learn happen, you just aren't present for them. Yeah. You're literally in the middle of one. And
that's insane.
And so then that GM would get up, and now here would come a president and a GM and another group of agents, and they'd sit down and kind of have a similar conversation. So, I don't want to sit here and say that, I was eavesdropping or you're sitting there listening for scoops. Like, you can't help it. They're 10 feet away. Yeah. Right. And so anyway, if you guys want to know anything about what's going to happen this summer,
we just talked about what's Alex.
I'd love to know. You start talking, and I'm going to start writing.
The scoops are about to flow.
Yeah,
but really, just real quick, but I am just shocked at this, that they would have these conversations within earshot of anyone that's not there in the organization.
Yeah, I think they thought I was a truck driver, so not immediate.
Jared was holding a powdered donut, just being like, I'm not listening.
Yeah.
One of the things in which that seems to be kind of prevalent talk right now in this offseason, or we're not to the offseason yet, was that since the free agent class is so weak, that there could be a lot of movement via trade and stuff throughout the course of the league this offseason. And I guess those kinds of conversations that have probably been happening since the trade deadline
keep going,
are going to just keep going.
Yeah, and so that ties into the conversation I had with Doug Armstrong, and maybe you guys saw the article in The Athletic. Look, you do your best, right? You have the president of hockey operations on the phone, and you're asking him questions about what's happening this offseason. We're just in a difficult period right now for a couple of reasons. One, we're still 3-4 weeks away, right? Mm-hmm. So yes, while there could be conversations going on, and I'm sure there are, they aren't going to heat up for a little while longer. So anything you ask Doug Armstrong about, hey, what could happen? First of all, is he really going to tell you? But second of all, it's a little too early. Like he said that doesn't become more serious until June 20th. And then second of all, Alex and I were talking about this. I think you could ask Doug Armstrong right now, hey, did you cut your grass today? And his response, well, that's an Alexander Steen question. So you need to ask Alex that one.
The moment they made that succession plan in place, he was like, man, I finally have an out. Right. This is awesome.
He's got a little bit of a cop-out because everything is directed to Alexander
Steen. It's the Marshawn Lynch. I'm just here so I don't get fined.
Right.
Only he doesn't get in trouble because it's an honest answer.
Okay, but in reading your article in The Athletic and your chat with Doug, as much as I understand that right now he has got to play the middle guy, the middle ground, Alex and I kind of alluded to it at the very beginning of the podcast. We could go into 26-27 with a team looking a whole lot like the one that we saw in the fall. And I don't think that Blues fans are necessarily prepared for that idea, but I think it's a real possibility.
Yeah, no, that would be, I think, in the eyes of a lot of Blues fans, a major disappointment.
Yeah.
But what I've come to learn over the years is that even the guys who are making the decisions, and that's what I wrote in my article, they don't know how it's going to play out. Yeah. And Doug said, look, you can make all the preparations and do all the homework, and it turns out to nothing. So, I don't think it's going to end up nothing. I think there are going to be changes. As kind of bland as Doug has to be, Alex says this too. He does usually say one thing that kind of catches your eye. And the one thing I think in that interview was Alex and I want to be as active as people around us will allow. Mm-hmm. So, he didn't have to say that. And I think that when you go into an offseason and your GM saying we're going to be as active as people will allow us, it kind of shows that, are they trying to trade up? Yeah, I think they're trying to trade up. But he said, you got to have a team that wants to trade back.
Right.
All this talk about trading up to number 2. Well, then there's a report that, San Jose doesn't want to drop any lower than 4. So, how do you make that work? Do you make the trade with Chicago? Now you got the 4. Now you trade up to the 2. So, I think you can explore a bunch of different things. The trades, look, the draft is always a period where trades can get done. It's happened, for years and years and years. For Doug to come out and say this is kind of a trade deadline, the draft, because the Blues do have so many picks, you can package some of those picks. You can, trade a current roster player in a deal and get it done at the draft, I think is something that's possible. But also, like Doug said, he goes, I could see this team looking the exact same, and we made all 3 of our picks, and here we are in early July. And now Alex has to work the phones, and we have to see if there's teams who missed out on free agents or didn't get done what they wanted to do at the draft, and now they're willing to make trades. So I'll summarize by saying this. I think that sometimes Blues fans, and I understand why, the draft comes and goes and they're upset because these three things didn't happen. What if something better happens a week after, 2 weeks after the draft? So I would stress, this is always good with fans. Be patient.
They love that.
Yeah. But I really do get a genuine feel from Doug after talking to him that they are trying to be active.
Look at the O'Reilly trade. Like the O'Reilly one is a perfect example to where it was draft day came and went and people were like, nothing.
Well, and
then the first day of free agency, it was Bozak. And people were like, that's your answer? You missed the playoffs. Like, this was your answer to fix our problems. And it took the next day for the O'Reilly trade to finally go through. And that's why, I look at this as two separate timelines. I don't think you're going to see position players moved at the draft. I look at the draft first night, to me, is going to be, do they move up or not? Because if you don't move up, I think it's going to be, we're taking all three of the picks. It's kind of like what that 2023 draft was, to where they picked Stenberg and Lindstein. It's like, I thought they would move up. They didn't, and they took all three picks. I think the position player happens after that first night of the draft, to where then teams got their picks, they know what free agency looks like, and then it's okay, now let's see if we can go out there and upgrade our roster.
All right, I want to ask a couple of questions that I've been wanting to ask you guys for a couple of weeks, specifically about the draft and about the 2 pick and the 4 pick. All right, the San Jose pick and then the Chicago pick. All right. I would think, and you guys can tell me that I am wrong, but in my rationale, if I'm San Jose and I'm my career, I'm hanging on to that number 2 pick and I am drafting most likely the best defenseman in that draft to be on that back end, to be a core piece moving forward. One of the reasons that I think it makes sense is because aren't you getting ready to pay Macklin Celebrini a bejesus ton of money? And don't you have to be kind of cost conscious with how you run that salary for the San Jose Sharks when you're going to have that one player eating up so much of it? Isn't it beneficial for them to draft that guy number 2 and then have him cost controlled for the next 4 or 5 years or what have you?
It's a great layout of the question.
Or is that, please tell me if I'm wrong.
No. It's a great layout. I think a couple things. A, the cap is jumping, so it's going to go 104, then it's going to go 113. Second of all, there's a certain percentage that's the max that a player can occupy of the cap. So yes, Celebrini is going to get paid, but they should still be able to put together a good roster that includes that massive salary. But the most important answer to your question is you just have to get the best asset if you keep number 2, you just have to get the best asset. Like hypothetically, let's say they take Stenberg and he's the best asset. In a year or two, you could trade him for something that helps you 2 years from now, that helps you where you're at in 2 years, that helps you salary wise. So you just can't pass over the best asset. And
I mean, 3 years from now, they have $106 million in cap space. Let's say Celebrini makes $17 million. Like, you still got almost $90 million to work with in your cap space. And I don't think anybody else on that roster is going to be Macklin Celebrini money. So I think you're in a place to where you could pay him and not worry about it. I've just always thought that the only way they're trading the second overall pick is if they get a defenseman who's faster to the NHL, if that makes sense. So yes, if I'm San Jose, I need help on the defensive side. And I'm going to, if Stenberg and the best defenseman are that close, I'll take the defenseman. But you float the offer to see if somebody's going to trade the defenseman that they drafted 4th overall 2 years ago that wants a forward in place. So that's why San Jose floats it out there. Chicago, I think, is a little bit more plausible because they need help everywhere. And I think they want to start trying to win now. So does a Kyrou become attractive to them? But if I'm Chicago, and I think St. Louis fans would be like, oh yeah, we'll trade it for the 4th overall pick. Why wouldn't you just draft the guy that's got the potential and upside that's cheaper rather than somebody who's already a proven commodity, but he's making $8 million?
If you're the Hawks, isn't your number one thing this offseason is that you have got to get talented freaking players around Connor Bedard, and I would think that Stenberg would be absolutely fantastic there, as much as I hate to say that.
If you're them, you're getting one of Stenberg, Malhotra, or McKenna. Like you know you're going to get one of those because you believe San Jose's taking the defenseman. And then it's just like, all right, well, we're in a good shape. And if you want to make sure you get the player that you want, then you trade the 4th overall pick for the 2nd overall pick. And then you know you're in a good spot. So yeah, I don't see a trade happening beyond the 2nd or 4th pick, and I don't think it makes sense if you're the Blues to trade for anything other than the 2nd or the 4th overall pick.
Yeah, like Doug said, and he used an example of they have players in blocks, right? And so let's just hypothetically say that, the top 5 is one block. They would love to have any player of their top 5. And again, this is stating the obvious, but, you're only making a trade to trade into that top 5 because you're comfortable with taking one of those 5 players. If you think 6 through 11 all grade out the same, then you're not trading up to 6 or 7.
Right.
6, 7. And you can't do so the Blues know that even at number 11, they might not get exactly who they want, but they're going to get a guy who's in that grouping. And, that's what Doug was trying to
look at the Carbonneau draft. They drafted Carbonneau, and Doug told us on that draft show that like they had him ranked as the 9th best player in the draft, and he drops to them at whatever they picked at. So
it was 17.
Yeah. So I mean, like they know where they're going with this, and it's just a matter of, that's why to me, it's you trade to get Stenberg. And if you can't get Stenberg, then I just don't think it makes sense to make a trade. You stick where you're at, and if you move up to 7 or 8 at the time when one of those guys is available that you say like he's still in our block. But I don't think it makes any sense to try and move up to 5 or 6 because you're probably getting the same player, at least from what everyone says about this draft.
Wow. Okay. So then also too, I want to ask this about draft positioning. Once you make that first pick in the first round and you're going best available, after that, are you trying to fill more organizational needs, or are you still going with best player in that first round? Is that a dumb question?
No. I think you always go best available because of what JR said. Like the Blues had a stretch of like 3 drafts where all they took were left-handed defensemen, and people were complaining like, what are they doing? Why are they taking all these defensemen? It's because you take as many as possible, and then when somebody wants one of those guys, you've got a plethora of them. Look at the wing position. They traded Bolduc because they had so many wings in their organization that it's like, well, let's go fix the area that we need now, which is defense, and they got Logan Mailloux from it. So, I mean, unless we're talking about like it's the similar ceiling for these two, and it's a center and a defenseman, and sure, let's go the center because we need more help there. Yeah. I think you just go best available player no matter what, because like Doug has said in the past, you put a name to the number and then teams want it more than when it's just the number.
Yeah, you have to because, you illustrated it. Let's say it gets to the Blues pick, and I'm just throwing this out there. I've had to do like 10 mock drafts. And
you don't even know where you're at anymore.
I don't even know anymore. But I haven't seen half the kids play. So
Jerry was just in a hotel. He's like, that kid's big. So let's go with that one.
He looks big. But if it gets to the Blues and Ethan Belchess is available, he's a very good winger, big guy.
I like
big
this
guy. He's a winger, and so you have to take him even if center is your need in the organization, because in 2 to 3 years, guess what? Ethan Belchess is going to be an attractive commodity for other teams, and that center that you took instead because you needed center, hasn't done anything for 2 years. So you just have to take that best available.
I'm just complete. The player development process, the ability for these scouts to see this stuff years in advance, it blows me out of the friggin' water.
Yeah.
How they could even see this 18-year-old that you're seeing in the lobby of the friggin' hotel, and you're kind of projecting how you think that guy is going to be in 6 years. Yeah. That's freaking amazing.
Yeah, listen,
me, man.
So I've been at The Athletic for 9 years, and, you feel like all the guys that cover the teams, hey, sometimes that can be a difficult, hard job. These guys who do the drafts and talking about Corey Pronman and Scott Wheeler.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to this tournament and this tournament. They're flying to Europe. They're doing this. And all of a sudden they put together this list that turns out to be pretty accurate with how the actual draft turns out. And, not trying to always plug The Athletic, but you look at Scott Wheeler's piece from a couple days ago, he's got like 400 words written on dozens and dozens of guys. He cuts to the left and he likes to circle back. And so it's pretty impressive what they do. And I'll just tell you what, the talent level of some of these guys coming out now is just flat. Like I said earlier, the walking through the hotel, 6'4", 218. It's just
that Belchez that he's talking about. He's like 6'5", 218 pounds,
218,
and he's already 18 years old.
Yeah,
6'5", 213 pounds,
and that boy is still growing.
Yeah.
That's nuts.
Man strength isn't even for 6 years.
It's so fascinating to me how the NHL, and I guess it's not just the NHL. I mean, I think it's just sports in general. I mean, when I was a kid, there were some bigger hockey players, but I think most of them, I would say, were probably 6 foot, 6'1". I don't think that they were, but then you just started to see that sort of movement happen, and now they're all friggin' goddamn trucks.
Well, and I've said this before, guys, but when I first started covering the Blues, when you walked in the locker room after the game, they legit had Bud Lights in their hand. Yeah. I have not seen a Bud Light. And maybe they're in the back drinking a beer. I don't know. But now it's protein shakes. Maybe they set their Bud Light down, grab their protein shake, and then walk out.
Maybe the Bud Light's mixed in the protein shake.
I was watching an interview with Nathan McKinnon, and I cannot remember who was the interviewer, but they were talking about how strict he is with his fitness regimen, with his workouts, with all of these things.
Samesies.
And and the interviewer said, what is your cheat meal? And McKinnon, just as flat as I could be, I don't really have a cheat meal. I don't really do that. If I do, it might be a piece of pizza here or there. But I mean, it's just much different than this training and all of this stuff. It never stops. No, it never, ever stops. I really thought that there was a time when the season was over that the boys got to let the belts out a little bit. You know what I mean? We don't maybe got to go to the gym for a couple weeks. We can have those beers, but I don't
That's
believe
what training camp was for 20 years ago.
I don't think that exists anymore.
And Donnie, I did that story, and it seems obvious if you think about it, but they actually eat poorer if they're going to eat poor during the season because they can skate it off.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys, 90% of them, they say that, in the off season when you're not skating, you can't cheat because you're not going to skate it off. So.
I couldn't do it.
It's my excuse too.
I do not have the intestinal fortitude in which to do that. So I have been, for the last 2 months, since March, I have been just walking like a demon every single day. I've walked over 10,000 steps.
Whoa, 10 steps. Whoa, Donnie.
Stop it.
I had to beat there for a minute until they changed it.
10,000 steps. I'm at 18 days in a row now that I've done this.
Dang.
So last night I get home, I'm sweaty. I'm like, I've done this again.
Bah.
I say to Dexter, Dex, I've walked 10,000 steps, 18 days in a row. And he looks and he goes, you don't look any different.
Oh my goodness.
You know what? If you need a realism check in your life, have a kid that's autistic because they got no gray area. Yeah. They're just telling you whatever the hell that they're thinking in their
lift your
head.
Pants up and look at these calf muscles, Dex.
Nothing. Doesn't even care.
He's like, yeah, you don't look different.
Let's take a break. We'll come back. Final segment here, Last Minute Blues podcast. All right, so guys, over the course of the next couple of weeks, the draft is coming up in what, I believe?
June 26th. So what is that? That's 22 days?
So we're about 3 weeks away. Guys, what would you be telling Blues fans to be looking after, to be paying attention to? One thing that I will genuinely tell them, and I know that you're not trying to pimp the Athletic, but I am, if you are curious about these guys that are going to be drafted, check out the Athletic, and you literally can get a rundown of all of these guys, and then you can start kind of in your own head saying, boy, I'd love to see the Blues draft this or that. But what would you guys be looking out for?
Yeah, if you think you have mock draft overkill, give it another week because I would imagine there's going to be like 15 more coming once the Combine's done. I think mine's just going to be the conversations, but like JR mentioned in the piece with Doug, I don't think you should be waiting on pins and needles to see what happens because I don't think anything's going to happen until the week of the draft. Mm-hmm. Like I loved the line that Doug said, it's a deadline league, and it really is, to where like nothing's going to happen until teams feel like they have to make a move. And I don't think that's going to happen until you get the day before the draft or even at the draft. But I do think the conversations that continue to go in terms of what teams need certain pieces, because like you've seen a lot of insiders that I trust, whether it's Dreger or Johnston or LeBrun, that keep floating it out there, teams that are going to revisit conversations that were at the deadline. And the Blues are involved with a lot of those. So I think that's just going to be my biggest thing, is like, let's see what conversations pick back up between now and that first night of the draft, because that's when there could be some noise once the Stanley Cup Final's over.
Yeah, and speaking of all those mock drafts,
Jared's got 5 more coming.
we were talking about Belchez a second ago. I'm sitting there going, shoot, maybe I should have taken him. I don't think that mock draft has been published yet.
Who'd you take?
Oh, I went with at 50 or at 11. I had to go with the defenseman Malte Gustafsson.
He's a Swede. I don't blame you for doing that.
Yeah, you have to go with that.
We seem to like the Swedes a lot.
Seems to make some sense now.
But yeah, so he's a left-handed defenseman, two-way guy, and would look good in that top 4 with Broberg.
Always go with the 6'5", 218-pound.
Yeah, have to, yeah. But
that's the way I look at it.
To answer your other question, that's an Alexander Steen question.
Yeah.
Hey, so let me ask you this, all right? And I, as I was reading that article yesterday and got down towards the end of it, and again, this is probably just me being the guy that likes to think way too much into things, but I want to ask you, JR, do you really think that Doug Armstrong is done being a general manager in the National Hockey League?
No.
Yeah.
That's an Alexander Steen question.
Yeah.
It just, every time that I read an interview that you have done with him, there just seems to be enough kind of left out here in the ether, making me think this dude is not done. This is just like a go-between until that kid in Toronto screws it all up.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Ken Holland, after Detroit, I don't know did he step away or did he take on that president of hockey operations?
He kind of stepped down, and you were thinking maybe it's mutual.
Yeah.
But then he popped up again.
Well, that's what I'm kind of wondering, because I know he and Ken Holland are very tight. Like, Ken Holland, I thought, had that to where it was like he was the guy that did everything, and then he took a higher role to where he wasn't involved, and then he showed back up again once another opportunity presented itself.
And then, Edmonton, and then he goes to LA, and so I think Doug will land somewhere at some point. You know, I was thinking the other day, it might not be Toronto, but it would be unbelievable if these rumors started, 3-4 years ago? Uh-huh. How many GMs are they going to have before they eventually get to Doug?
Before they get to the one that actually does the job?
Like in 3 years now. That'd be crazy.
That'd be wild.
So I don't know.
Doug's probably doing the right thing. He's going to make sure that the Blues are able to trade for Austin Matthews, and then he'll take the job in Toronto. Let's help out
some insider trading that I can get behind.
Take some St. Louis into it, and then we'll go to the other way.
This is just in his blood. He loves to do it.
Yeah.
And listen, you see Doug, the authority figure, but he's still a guy who's in his early 60s. Mm-hmm. So you got a lot of time left. And once Alexander Steen gets on his feet and Doug has felt like he's done the mentor thing, I don't know what else there would be left for him to do. So we'll see how it all unfolds in the next couple of years. But I think he's going to pop up somewhere.
I'm really fascinated what a disagreement between Doug Armstrong and Alexander Steen looks like. I'm serious. Like about a trade, about a player, I just wonder what that is like. And I would assume that they're able to hash it out in a very healthy way, that they appreciate that. But what happens if Alex is starting to feel himself a little bit, and it starts to be like, you know what, Doug, I don't know that I need you as much as I needed you at one particular time.
I think Doug's probably going to welcome that.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
I think Doug's going to be like, good. Like that's what I've
done my job.
Yeah. Like, I don't think you make the decision Doug makes if you're not like, hey, like, take it. So then that gives me my opportunity, because like all of this conversation really comes down to, is Tom Stillman comfortable with Doug leaving? That's the only way Doug's going to get another opportunity until his contract is up, is if Tom's okay with it. So like the more Alex Steen is like, I'm good, I got this. Yeah. Then Doug's got the opportunity to be like, he's good. I need something to fill this hole right now. Like I need more general manager work.
And Tom being comfortable with Alex. Yeah. Like once that relationship continues to evolve, then you get to a point where then maybe Tom would grant permission for Doug to leave, but he's not going to get to that point until he feels like he and Alex are lockstep. Yeah.
Real quick here before we leave, I just thought of this. The Blues made an announcement earlier this week about Mikko Koivu, who is now in charge of the development of European players. Was that a position that the Blues had before, or is this a new position?
So they've had scouts in Europe, where they called the development coach No, not necessarily. Alexander Steen took on that position because he was in Sweden. He was living there post-career. And then that kind of is what got the ball rolling for Alexander Steen to keep talking to the Blues and eventually take the GM job. So, there's already been some changes, like with Peter Chiarelli leaving and they changed out the management staff in Springfield. Then they sent Steve Ott there. So slowly but surely, Alexander Steen has been kind of molding the staff that he wants. I still think we'll see, Paul Stastny, Robert Bortuzzo, officially named to the staff. But, Alexander Steen understands the importance of Europe, obviously, and Koivu, couldn't pick a captain of the team in Minnesota.
Seriously,
for years. So no, I think it's a great hire. I don't know anything about Koivu, never met him, but obviously his reputation is there, and so it looks like he's going to be a great liaison between Steen and. First
thing I thought of was we're about to see Team Sweden and Team Finland on the Blues roster. It's like, oh boy!
Hey, listen. If it brings us dubs, I don't care where they're from.
And those Finns play nasty, man.
I mean, I
like it.
Let's friggin' roll. All right, so let's talk about the podcast over the course of the next few weweeks. Next week, we will do probably an audio-only email segment. So if you want to send in your emails, LMBP at 1057thepoint.com. And then we are also, so that I guess 2 weeks from today, we'll be back in here to do a new video episode. But then we will also be doing a draft night show. Yeah. We're going to be doing that live as well, correct?
Correct. So I got it confirmed with the Blues. We're going to be set up at Enterprise Center like we were last year, right kind of where the locker room is. We're going to have that set up. We'll go live at 6 o'clock, and we'll be live on 101 ESPN, and we'll be live on YouTube. It'll be me, Donnie, and JR, I know, has his athletic duties, so he'll be joining us throughout the night. Chris Kerber will join us throughout the night as well, and then we'll have guests. We had Doug Armstrong on last year with us, so we'll probably have him, maybe Tony Feltrin, so we'll have guests throughout the evening. But yeah, we're going to be broadcasting live the first night of the draft.
And they're only going to have 3 picks in that round and 12 total, so it won't be...
and maybe trade, so it'll be a wild night. It wasn't as wild of one when we did it last year. We thought it might be, but they had the 17th pick and they selected Justin Carbonneau, and we went about our evening. This one, I think, might have some more fireworks, so I was like, we got to go live.
Yeah, I'll never forget 2010. It was in L.A., and when they draft the player and he stands and hugs his family, then they take him down to the bowels of the arena, and that's when he does the interview. So I'm sitting there interviewing Jaden Schwartz at what was pick number 12.
Yeah, 12, because in 14 or 15.
14 and 16.
Yeah, 14, 16.
Either way, all of a sudden, as I'm interviewing Schwartz, the Blues have made a trade. The Blues have selected Vladimir Tarasenko and I'm like, what? They didn't even have a pick there. What just happened? But that's when they had traded David Rundblad to Ottawa for that pick to get Tarasenko. And like, well, now
I got to go do that. Now, sorry, Jaden.
So I kind of hope that it's crazy.
I do too. Well, and the bigger thing is last year we wanted Donnie to be able to do it, but Donnie had his radiothon that day, and we were like, Donnie is not going to be able to handle this after doing 24 hours straight.
I can't drive after that situation.
Smart.
And also, too, I would just be even worse than I normally already am.
I'd argue better because no sleep of Donnie might be very entertaining. But you're moving that one this year.
Yep.
So Donnie is going to be there for the whole thing.
I'm so excited. Yeah, we're going to be doing the radiothon in July. So that's still going to happen. We're still going to raise our money for Ronald McDonald House Charities of St. Louis.
Awesome.
Such a freaking great goddamn cause, and we're so genuinely thrilled to do it. But I approached him and was like, hey guys, I want to do obviously the radiothon very much, but on this hockey thing, and I really want to do this too. And so they were very cool and kind of working things around so that we can make it happen. So
it'll be a Last Minute Blues podcast draft show with Chris Kerber appearing.
We are going to do our very best to keep you pumped with all kinds of Blues information throughout the course of this offseason, the draft, free agency, all of it. We're going to do our best to be everywhere as much as we can.
We're here, and I hopefully we'll get a live show too this summer. There's talk of potentially at the Beer Garden to where we'll be out there do another live show.
Dude, come on.
Hopefully we'll be able to bring more of us and more stickers of us to you. This offseason.
To you. Last Minute Blues podcast. Donny Fandango, Alex Ferrario, Jeremy Rutherford. Thanks as always for listening, for watching, for spreading the word. And as always, let's go Blues.
Thanks for tuning into the Last Minute Blues podcast on your home for Blues hockey, 101 ESPN.